Vice Chairman of the Public Safety Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Havey, Mr. Rumfelt,
Here.
Mr. Barnes,
Present.
Mr. Sear, Mr. Demick, Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mr. Stockin. Here. 5 present, 2 absent.
Here comes Mr. Sear.
Here's Mr. Sir. Need a motion for approval of the March 2nd minutes.
Harris moves it.
Moved by Harris. Do I have a second? Healy, Legislator Healy, second. Any discussion? Any omissions, corrections? All in favor? Aye. That's approved. And next up, we have Brian Perkins, Stop BWI Coordinator, for his monthly report.
Good afternoon. I'm a little ahead in the schedule this meeting. We changed it around a little bit, and I'll get to the reason for that in a minute. But first, you do have my report. Victim impact panels are starting to kick in there. Bicycle safety, I've mentioned before, we're getting scheduled. 4-H is helping schedule those things. The Save a Life Tour did make its first appearance in Allegheny County at SIO last month. So I attended that, helped kind of facilitate that program a little bit. They had a presentation for about an hour in the auditorium for the high school students. They watched the presentation, and then class by class they went down to the gym, and they had the simulators there, and the kids were able to have a chance to work through some of those things. And then I was kind of the lead-in that after they had a break, went to a couple classes and came back down to the gym. I was the setup guy to kind of remind them what they saw in the morning and then lead them into the simulators. But I did glance over Traffic Safety Board briefly there during my report because that's kind of why I was mentioning I did get moved up in the order. So the Traffic Safety Board is becoming a bit more of an active group, and we're trying to get ourselves out there, and we're planning some projects that we want to do. And on that note, we know that as we get down the road, we're going to need the support of our legislators as we do it. So we wanted to make sure, especially given that there's some new faces here, that we knew what we were going to be doing. And Mr. Henry is here to help me with other questions. The sheriff's in on the board, so and the undersheriff's usually in attendance as well. So if I fumble something up, I'm sure they'll catch me on it. But basically, I just wanted to give you a couple talking points about what the Traffic Safety Board is, so that you know going forward. We're all Allegheny County residents. It's part of the bylaws. You have to reside in Allegheny County for these committees. And we meet with the common goal of making sure that the roadways are safe in any way that we can. So there's representatives from varied backgrounds. We've got law enforcement, first responders, highway departments from county and state. Stop DWI is in there, Ardent Solution, and then schools are there with their transportation people. We have a school resource officer on the committee as well, so that there's a lot of ways that we can get connected with people and impact. We've got retired guys that are DPW and been in there, and we're all over the place. So we've got a really great group. We meet every month, talk through some issues of what we see, what we identify, where there might be things. We've helped with crosswalks, speed zones, feedback on that. We keep up to date on where the road projects are. Not that we do much with those, but it's nice information to have for the committee, so that as we're looking of where potential things might be, we can see if there's anything that our committee and the people that are out there, because we do have representatives from all of the districts. So we get feedback from kind of all over the county of where any problem areas might be, or where there's issues popping up. We do have a few committees on there that we're really starting to make use of again. One of them is accident location and analysis. And the sheriff has actually last month brought the new website that it's a state site, correct? The state's given him access to, where it plots the points for where these accidents occur. Any accident that happens within the county, he can click on a button and bring up stats on what was going on. Was it impairment? Was there seatbelts? Was there distraction? Was it roadways causes or hazards? Weather. Any number of things we can plot out from that website. So that's going to be a big help there. We have a Public Relations and Education Committee, which I happen to be on, which is why we are using this time to introduce you a little bit and get it in front of you guys a little bit. Also, the Political and Legal Committee ties into that. A public safety group, and then application review and evaluation. So as different grants come available, some of those grants, in the past, there was more of them. There's not as many anymore that have to go through the Traffic Safety Board. But in the past, there would be more applications that, as they went through to like the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee, they'd require a signature from the county's Traffic Safety Board saying that, yeah, we're on board with this. We know it's a need and this group can do it. So Ardent Solutions does a lot of those grants, child passenger safety, pedestrian stuff. Some of the bus things I think that they do might fall through there. So there's a group that kind of would review those applications, make sure they get approved, and they're moving on. And then outside of that, we do a few other things to try to make sure that we're out there reaching out to the public and they know what's going on. So during the fair week, we've got a booth set up. We work with the highway superintendents, the county highway superintendents. The county's town and village highway. I don't know. There's a big long acronym, and I'm butchering it right now. County Town Highway Superintendents Association, that they usually purchase a couple bikes that we can give away to kids, or several bikes. There's usually one per day during the fair. So we'll have a raffle. They'll put in for the raffle. We'll give away the bikes, and then I help get in there and give them helmets and some other safety stuff to make sure we're all set there. I mentioned, we've helped support projects with crosswalks and speed zones, things like that. And then another thing is there was some slow-moving committee things, particularly the sheriffs put a lot of work into that, with going to conferences and things like that for Amish buggies, but really any other, slow-moving vehicles and how traffic laws and the things around here impact those. So we take a lot of looks at that. So that's kind of the background of what the Traffic Safety Board does. We are looking to probably start becoming even more and more active in what we're doing as we move forward. So we wanted to make sure that everybody had a little glimpse as to what we do and what we're here for. Did I do all right? Anything else you want me to get?
Yeah, overall, the goals this year, I was fortunate enough to be elected president, and we went through the bylaws and, just the history of this program. And one of the things came out of last meeting, and something that we're supposed to be doing by bylaws, is giving the Board of Legislators updates. So I just, after discussion with the board or the committee, we determined this platform was probably the best to get the conversation started, but just as importantly is getting the information out to you. We want to use this as a platform to get information to us on any kind of guidance of what you would like us to be looking at or evaluating.
And generally, I think for me over the past few years, I usually have something in there every month about the Traffic Safety Board, whether, if we met, what we discussed a little bit. But certainly, and Mr. Healy's been to several meetings. Certainly anyone else is welcome to come if you want to know. It's generally the fourth Tuesday of the month at the county jail and public safety facility. So if anyone's interested, you're more than welcome to pop in. There may be cookies involved. It's generally what gets me there.
What time are the meetings?
1 o'clock.
I'll forward meeting information and agenda to Brenda to be able to give out.
Okay. So there's a little info on that, and then we'll kind of fall back to my report, and if anybody had any other questions on that or anything else. Okay. Thank you very much.
Next up, we got Mr. J.R. Santana from the Public Defender's Office.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Today I'm going to rest on my report. The numbers are, as they always are, they keep getting arrested and we keep taking them. So all is good. Come next month, I should have a new assistant public defender joining my ranks, and so we want to get him up and trained. He just has to find housing, but I think he'll be a good fit, and he'll be answering a lot of the on-call calls for arraignments at wee hours of the night and morning. So any questions?
I'd just like to thank your office. I've observed other public defenders' office, and your public defenders actually appear to care about their defendants.
Thank you.
They actually do a good job.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
just wondering if you could give us an update. It's probably haven't had one since before you came up, but the council at first appearance, What's the status of that at this point? I know you had funding for it before. Did the funding run out? Are you making the attempt? What's
We're
going on?
still acting off the ILS funding, Indigent Legal Services funding, in order to fund that position and supplemental funds for the other attorneys that's covering the weekend basis. I think what you mean more is the centralized arraignment plan to have it at the jail. That is still in the works, working with the administration to further that proposal. There's a lot of numbers and things that has to be figured out with staffing at the jail in order for a proposal to be put in front of the legislators that's comprehensive so that y'all can vote on.
That's something that's universally liked, though, right?
It definitely seems to be liked by law enforcement because let's say if the person does go to jail, then they're there. They don't have to then be taken from justice court and then driven to jail, which sometimes they're highly agitated once they find out that they just got arraigned and now they have to go to jail. But I think from the perspective of some of the law enforcement, it would also eliminate the need for after arraignment where someone's released. Now the troopers being asked to take them home. That's kind of a unique situation that I don't think they really like being on the end of. But from the perspective of the town justices, when they go out at 3 a.m, there's no security there, and so they're left locking up a building all by themselves. So there's a lot of benefits that can come to a centralized arraignment program, and I just want to help get everything in steps to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You go ahead, Mr. Ely.
If somebody's released after an arraignment, there's no obligation on the part of law enforcement or the system to provide transportation. Is that correct or no?
That's correct. But a lot of times you might have a justice that kind of asks the law enforcement officer, and again, maybe they shouldn't be put in a situation that be asked that question, but it's common practice for them usually to drive people back home or to their area of residence.
But if they're not in custody, then wouldn't there be some liability issues?
Could be. Again, that's why centralized arraignment would solve some of these problems.
Any other questions? Thank you for.
Thank you.
And next up, we have, I don't think Jeff Lucky's here, so it's going to be Bonnie from the Emergency Management and Fire Directors.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Jeff is at the ILO conference for the Intelligence Liaison Officer that is part of our grants that he has to have that, so he will not be here today. You have the monthly report. In the last month, I've been working a lot with the EMS. I have met with a new medical director for the county that we're going to be bringing up for one of the MOEs. I can tell you that we've been working on this for 2 years. Dr. Edwards was our medical director for years and years. He wants to retire, and so we've been looking diligently. I've been looking since I took this position in 2019, and we've been having a really hard time to find somebody to fill that position. When I got to meet Lisa Ryder, Dr. Lisa Ryder she's now out of Jones Memorial, she's out of U of R. She was very willing, she is, so it was a very good fit for our system. And I really enjoyed visiting with her, and she's very much in on the rural area. The other things I've been working with is I've been working with Alfred State College to put in an EMT class through the college that they're going to teach. We'll have one of our instructors over there because they have to be a CIC to do that through us. So they will be going through over there and teaching at the college. They're going to try to get some of their faculty, staff, and students to take the EMT class. I've also been working with the Wellsville Superintendent of Schools as they're going for a grant to try to get an EMT class into the school, into Wellsville School, to educate with EMT for the high schools, juniors, and seniors. So he's working on that. He's working on a grant for that, and he's looking out a couple of years from now, but he's been asking information to put into the grant. one last thing is that the Recruitment and Retention Committee from the Fire Advisory Board is also working on getting an EMT class into the BOCES system that would benefit all of Allegheny County schools, that they could come. It would be an EMT fire program that when they graduate from high school, they could go on and become a paid firefighter or a paid EMT to work outside of this area, or I mean, work in this, like for MTS or Trans Am, or go to work for Mercy Flight, so that they will have a career in mind that when they get out of there. So those are the things that I've been working on.
Any questions for anybody? Okay. So then, guess we have the memorandum for medical director.
Yes, we have like I say, this is going to be a big fit. Dr. Edwards is done in June, so this would be taking the place so that she will be overseeing our program. We have to have signatures to just run any of our classes, and we run 5 classes a year. She would be signing off on all of those classes, looking over the schedules and policies that we write for those classes to make sure that we're following all guidelines. She also would be working with she also is going to sign on with agencies, so she would be working. Yes.
Second.
Motion by legislator Healy, second by legislator Harris. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add a few more things here. So attached to the MOE request is also a draft resolution for the committee to consider. It's not in its final form, so it can be changed if needed. The contract would only be for a term of 1 year, so that if changes need to be made with the medical director after the first year, that could be done, it could be reviewed. Also, the agreement is actually going to be with the University of Rochester Medical Center, not with the doctor directly, although she will be the primary doctor assigned here. If for some reason she goes on vacation, the University of Rochester Medical Center can assign another qualified doctor who specializes in emergency medicine to work with EMS, who meets all the requirements set forth in the state law.
So this will be for basic life support for all the EMS agencies covered in the county, right?
Correct, for all basic life support.
So, and if anybody hasn't had the pleasure to work with Dr. Ryder, I've had firsthand experience with her in the trauma room, taking patients in, and she is wonderful to work with. She bought a house down here. She is a paramedic, so she knows the EMS system really well. And most of the squads are on their own trying to get her for the ALS medical director also, so that's a good. So is that draft included in everything, or do we have to make a separate for that draft position?
The draft is part of the MOE request, so you're just approving the MOE to prepare the resolution.
Okay.
But the resolution is already in a draft form prepared, so I did the advanced work for you, or my office did.
All right, thank you. All right, if there's a motion and a second, all in favor? Mr. Haley, you got a question?
So this is actually a contract with U of R, and Dr. Ryder is the person they're providing in this case.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay.
The dollar amounts are blank. Do we know how much this is going to cost us before you approve it?
She's got it as $10,000 is what she has said right now. They haven't got the final number in there, but $10,000 is what she told me.
So we'll have that before it goes to Ways and Means, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
One last question, Mr. Chairman.
yes, Mr. Harris.
How does that compare to our previous contract?
We've never paid the medical director in the past. That charging just came out within the last few years for the doctors to start charging.
Okay.
Dr. Edwards did it out of the good of his heart, I guess we would say.
Right, for
Yeah,
so many years,
Yeah,
yes.
for so many years. You're not going to find anybody to do it for free anymore in this day and age. We've checked, we've looked.
Yeah, I've looked for,
Yeah.
The $10,000 a year, and especially considering they're providing the service all the time, whether Dr. Ryder's there or not there, I think sounds more than reasonable to me.
And it's required by the state, so.
yes. In order to have your agencies run, you have to have a medical director.
Right.
In order for us to do the EMS classes, we have to have a medical director over us.
Any other discussion before you? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That's carried. All right, so we're County Administrator Chris Knapp.
Good afternoon. I'm just going to follow up with one of the items that I know that Jeff and Bonnie have been working on, but we've not had an EMS Advisory Council for 2 years. And we had one, I believe, from the 70s through 2020. It was an informal body, and it dissolved, and now the time is to create a formal one that complies with all the laws, and I have a request to go forward with that. So if you move this forward, there will be a resolution. I know the county attorney has drafted a resolution already. You'll vote on it, you'll create the advisory board, and then you'll appoint members after the fact. So you've got some time to think about the membership and how the board shall operate, so.
We have a motion.
Harris moves it.
Harris, second by Healy.
I love the second it.
Okay, fine.
Unless Healy got me first.
Yeah, you did. But any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, let's start.
I know we're just looking at a draft here, but I might as well ask the question now. It's for the county attorney. In the second resolved, a member of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators may be appointed as a member of the EMS Advisory Board. Does that indicate to you that there will not necessarily be a member of the Board of Legislators on this committee?
That's a really interesting question for you to ask me, because generally in the past, there have been for these EMS advisory committees, members of legislatures on them. However, when I was doing the research, there is some case law that is indicating that legislators or members of the governing bodies should not be on these advisory boards. So I need to do some further research to determine whether or not we can actually have somebody from your Board of Legislatures on the board at all. So that's why it says may and not shall.
Thank you for that clarification, and I'll take the opportunity to ask our county administrator her opinion on that matter. Should legislators serve on advisory board?
We have taken the stance that an advisory board is for the purpose of providing advice to the board, and we do not typically appoint board members to advisory boards unless there's some good reason to. And maybe something that the county attorney could explore, maybe having an ex officio member who's a non-voting member but is there to make sure that that person attends all those meetings and provides a direct relationship between this board and that. That's something you could explore as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to take this time to thank Clarissa and our county attorney. When I first got elected, that's one of the big goals I had, is to get this advisory board started again, and they really worked hard and diligently on it for the last couple of months. So I'd like to thank her for that, and also the county attorney for helping with that. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, District Attorney's Office, look like we have Mr. Dagan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pete Degnan with the District Attorney's Office. I guess I'm the sub of the sub. So it's lucky enough to get the third string in here, and here I am, ready to bat it up. So if you look at the report, obviously, crime is up, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. And, you know, that's, I think, a good reason why we need the extra assistant district attorney, which we're making an application for a full-time position. I think I'll just rest on the report if anyone has any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Anything you'd like to highlight? Well, just that, as far as, I mean, the crime is definitely up, and we definitely need another person to handle it. I don't know, you know, just the number of felonies that we have and the seriousness of the felonies is, and I've been doing criminal defense law forever, right? It is so much more serious than I've ever seen. And I think just because it's so hard to institute consequences. So, and we're already short-staffed in the office, so we really need somebody in there, because if you prosecute, we really got to start prosecuting cases really that are much more serious than I think I've ever seen them. I mean, I can just take, for example, the woman who we just convicted or pled guilty stabbed someone at McDonald's. I mean, whoever would thought we'd have that? There's just a lot of serious cases that are going on. And
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we fill this position.
All right. Do we have a second? Mr. Haley? So motion by legislator Sear and seconded by legislator Haley. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thanks. Sorry.
That's all right.
I was reading somewhere this week that within the state budget, there's a proposal to provide funding to district attorneys' offices to support them in the changes to discovery.
Yeah, I have not seen that, and I have gotten some information, they're gonna up the assigned counsel rates, there's some talk about changing the bail reform laws, so there's a lot of stuff that we don't have firm information on because it's not passed yet, but they are gonna make some changes.
Do you suppose that if they provide funding to your office, that funding will be able to be used towards payroll? Do you have any indication of that?
I don't have any indication of that, but obviously, if that's an available avenue, we would use it. Sort of similar to what the public defender does with the ILS.
Okay. I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we don't know.
Thanks.
Any other
Surprise.
discussion?
Just like to make a comment. Eons ago, I took Psychology 101, and one of the first things they taught you in Psychology 101 was that you had to have negative and positive sanctions for negative and positive behavior. In other words, if somebody's doing something wrong, they have to have consequences to their actions. And for their positive behavior, they had to have rewards. But it seems like somewhere along the line, psychology has changed, or people's interpretation of how we modify behavior has. But it's certainly off track, and we need to get it back on track. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor of creating the position?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we have Mr. Starks from Probation Director.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
You have my report in front of you, I believe. Don't really have much to add other than I noticed just today that I have a little bit of a typo there, and after I participated in the Meals on Wheels program, that rest of that board virtual meeting should have been removed, and I didn't catch that until today, so just a typo on that. Really don't have anything else to add unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Starks? Ms. Legislator Burdick.
With all the people that were just released from probation across the state, is that going to affect anyone in your office or in Allegheny County?
They were parolees, not probation. No, so they're not directly.
You'll get them back.
Indirectly, yes, we may see some of them down the road, but, they mentioned about crime is up, and it's still, there's still a lot of cases lingering in the courts that haven't, criminal adult cases that haven't come through our office yet. You can see our investigations are still low, but the courts are ordering, so there's a lot of cases still pending in the court system, so. As I predicted, once the schools got back in session, our PINS referrals would increase, and here we are, only a quarter of the way through the year, and we've got almost half number of PINS referrals we had all of last year, so I unfortunately wished I wasn't that good a predictor, but it is, so.
I apologize because I've missed the last couple meetings. Youth court, anything to report on youth court?
Actually, I just learned today that they did hire a coordinator. I don't know that I have permission to release the name since it's an Accord employee, so, but I just found out today that they have hired a coordinator, so
And we've contracted with Accord to provide those services, correct?
basically, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Weights and Measures Director, I don't see. I guess Mr. Green's not here. We have a report. I guess up to Sheriff Whitney then.
Good afternoon. I submitted my report if you have any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do have something off subject. I would like to offer my sympathies to Jail Administrator Chris Ivers for his swearing in as mayor of Geneseo, a couple days ago. Congratulations, good luck. College Town.
He's
Now, that's a former coworker of yours, is that correct, Mr. Harris?
That's correct, yeah.
he's a glutton for punishment.
All right. Now we have a request to fill positions.
Yes, I have a request to fill a correction sergeant position and any subsequent vacancies.
This is
So moved.
so moved by Legislator Harris.
Seconded.
Second by Legislator Seer. Any discussion? It's been signed off by everybody and it's an existing position. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And we have a memorandum to apply, or authorization to apply for the cybersecurity grant.
So moved.
Motion by Legislator Seer. Seconded by Legislator Haley. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Anybody have any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any old business? Any new business? Good of the order? I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Legislator Harris,
Seconded.
Legislator Seer, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.